This is Salty Believer Unscripted. I'm Brian Catherman. I have my two friends in the studio. Josiah Walker. Say hi, Joe.
Hello again.
And Kurt Galser.
Hey, everybody.
On this episode, I want to revisit, come back to our series, Train Them Up. We're talking about how to raise up the next generation. And I want to talk about young people being brought into the life of the church. But first, Josiah, who is our unsolicited shout out? What are we calling that?
Salty Believer Unscripted is unsponsored today by the Reformed Sage. The Reformed Sage is your one-stop shop for all apparel, merchandise, and things rooted in good theology. Their items are printed, packed, and shipped from their warehouse in Idaho. So it's American-made. And as we're heading into March right now, they have a shirt on sale that says, "Luck is for the heretics" on it. So don't be a heretic. Buy your gear from the reformedsage.com.
This has gotten to be the most professionally stupid thing ever. How did you get all that information?
I'm an avid customer of the Reformed Sage. I've bought for them for years.
Okay, so by the way,
at their conveniently located website right now.
So we do not, the Reformed Sage has no idea that we are giving any shout outs to anything that we like. We are not getting any money from any of this. I thought you were going to go to Preacher's Talk since I ripped off their intro. I'm with my two friends, blah, blah, blah. But nope, you went to Reformed Sage.
And
oh my goodness.
Sage is awesome.
It is really, they make some great clothing. Anyway, that was insane. You have a whole nother career, Joe, in radio at some point. Okay, let's shift gears to the topic at hand, how we're raising up the next generation. And guys, I want to talk about bringing young people at all levels, really little, high school, junior high, college age, maybe new Christian, into the life of the church before, they've got it all worked out, before everything looks perfect. And I want to talk about how that has I think it has a value in creating an ethos of training up young people. So, Joe, you grew up in the church.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you in this regard.
Yeah, growing up in the church, it seemed like there were always kind of opportunities and areas where I could serve in, especially as I got older. Like I remember entering into sixth grade, and I almost became like a student leader in the elementary class and was able to kind of help supervise the second and third graders a little bit. The real daunting time came for me on a Sunday night service when the drummer called in sick, and I'd recently started taking drum lessons. And I remember the worship leader calling on me to come and play drums for the adult service on Sunday night.
How old were you for that?
Knowing me, I was like 12, 13.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah.
Was it good?
Quite intimidating for me. I panicked a little bit. It was decent. We survived it. It wasn't a complete train wreck.
Okay. I was going to hold on to this card for a minute, but do you feel like because you were making an effort, maybe because you were young, do you feel like you got a little bit of not a free pass, but a little more grace from the congregation than if you had been the regular drummer performing at the same caliber? Did you feel like the conversation was the congregation was supportive of you because you were young and giving it a shot?
Yeah, obviously I was super nervous performing in front of all the adults, but I think they did show me a lot more compassion and mercy than they might have if I was 20, 30 years old, right?
Yeah.
They were very kind to me.
Okay, so Kirk, you became a Christian as an adult, right? You were in college, you and I both. So you didn't have the little kid engagement probably in church, but as a new believer, did you feel like, what was your church? Maybe I'm assuming you had a bunch of engagement in church. Maybe you didn't. Did you have a bunch of those opportunities early on in your Christian walk?
Yeah, so probably it wouldn't have been so much church, but chapel in the military. So I was pretty plugged into the chapel. And it was a lot of just getting plugged in. I was 20 or 18, 19. I was like about 19.
Private in the military?
Yeah, private, first class.
Okay.
Actually, no, I was a specialist.
So you become a believer.
Yep.
And the folks that were involved in the chapel, did they almost immediately just bring you in, plug you in, give you opportunities?
Yeah,
Is that what happened?
They were pretty open to having us come in. I don't remember exactly if it was a chaplain that was there all the time or whatever, but basically it was more kind of like Bible studies. I got more plugged in with the Bible studies and then just attended chapel, I would say.
But they brought you in.
Yeah.
I think for me, I remember, so I was an adult, and my wife and I were attending this church, and I was a very new believer, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you want to help with the offering?" And honestly, I was like, wait, I'm I'm like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm a super new believer. And the guy was great. His name was Bill. Wonderful, wonderful, older dear saint, grandpa-ish guy. And I told him, I don't know. And he's like, literally, what's not to know? You just pass this plate down to this row, and then when the plate comes, you do the next one. Yeah, but no buts, just jump in there. Mm-hmm. It really got me going down the trajectory of, I get to be involved in this faith family. There is a role to play. And it was a really big deal for me. I mean, just being invited into that. So
I think that's a key part of discipleship is giving people simple tasks and then kind of helping them walk through it.
And just jumping in. Okay, so I kind of wanted to open with a story on the flip side because I wasn't sure if you guys had these experiences, but I've visited a few churches. I used to travel around more when I was involved in church planning, and I went to one church where I was actually speaking and connecting with them, but I watched, and it was time to do the offering, since we're talking about offering, and all these old guys lined up, and they all had suits on. The rest of the church didn't really have suits or anything, but these old guys all lined up. And it turns out that the church is like, our deacons do the offering, and we only think it's appropriate to have no more than 12 deacons, which I don't know why they wouldn't want more people serving, but that was how the church worked. We have 12 deacons, and we replace the deacons once, one of them rolls off, dies, or whatever. Well, it's all these old guys. And and they walked down the front, and they had a whole thing. It was clearly never going to be an opportunity for somebody in their 50s, 40s, 30s on down to participate in that, because they had created a system that you don't get to participate until you're 60 plus years old. And I thought about my experience just being asked sort of randomly, and I thought, man, what a different picture that makes, right? Because Joe, you have kids helping once in a while, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes when it comes to serving in the church, we can get a little legalistic, if you will. You just mentioned that those guys were wearing suits, but nobody else in the church really was. And I remember having some young kids just helping with offering, just kind of passing the plate, collecting it. There were adults supervising them. But I remember somebody getting upset in my church because those kids were wearing shorts and sandals. And I thought, man, Christ meets us where we are. He doesn't wait for us to clean our lives up in order to serve. He meets us right where we are when he comes to save us and rescue us.
That's right.
So, I think it's important that we welcome those kids in. We don't tell them, hey, you have to dress right in order to serve, but we show that they have a place here in the church.
I could understand, though. I could understand why it might be confusing, because I have kids and I see kids, and it seems to me that at the teenager zone, when it's 0 degrees outside, they wear shorts and flip-flops. And when it's summertime, they wear sweatshirts and whatever. So was this the case, or are you just talking about like they just didn't seem like they were appropriate? They were wearing the appropriate gear for the moment.
No, for sure. No, they just felt like they should have worn like a tie or some slacks. And I agree, like we should give our best. We're coming to see the King on Sunday, so there's something to be said for attire. But I also think that kind of shutting the kids that way right out the bat would make them feel like they had no place in church or didn't want to serve at church or even be a part of the church. We forget the importance that really comes from just inviting people in and having them come and sit with us. So if my kid invites their friend to come to church, I don't want him to feel ostracized because he doesn't own a tie. I want him to feel welcome there. And so that's why we let kids serve in really simple ways. They'll collect the used communion cups after service as we've got all those cups.
What age kids do that?
In the carpet.
At what age kids do that?
I think probably 8 or 9,
So service is over, they go through, collect the cups, they have a place, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then what else do kids do at Redeeming Life? Walk us through that. Like, what are they? I mean, I'm not saying like, we look for kids to do this, but you involve them. You have adults and kids working together. What would be the things they do?
I have a couple of sandwich board, like A-frame signs that we put out on the street that just let people know, hey, this is where our church is, turn here. And the kids are really great. They'll actually fight over who gets to take the sign out. And they'll be the first ones running outside of church on Sunday when service is over to go pick those up and bring them back in. I've even had kids text me and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I forgot to get the signs today. And it just shows me how important that is to them and how much they value that they have an opportunity to serve the King and to serve the church on Sundays.
They got a place. Okay, what else do they do? So you got them taking out sandwich boards. You got them picking up little cups. You said they serve offering, or they serve, they collect the offering. Do they serve the Lord's Supper?
They don't serve the Lord's Supper. We usually have adult members do that because that's an important role here in the church, and we keep communion tied to those who have accepted Christ and are following
Yeah.
Him. But the kids will help collect the used cups when they're over. They'll even greet at the
Oh,
front
okay.
doors and greet and welcome people in. We have little connection cards that we put in the seat pockets that tell people how to connect to our church and use our church communication app. And kids will put those or some pens in the little pockets in the chairs. Little things that really
Small.
make a big difference.
Finding their place. Do you have, so I've watched your live stream, and I know some of the you have some younger, like high school age students on your worship team, right?
Yeah,
And they help.
absolutely.
You have them work in the sound booth once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of just the different places that in the life of the church that you can have young people involved in, right? Besides just you go to your Sunday school or you go to your youth program,
Sure.
but like actually, and you got a greeting, which is awesome. That's actually really great. I don't think we have young people as engaged at Trinity.
Yeah.
But we did invite, so you do this too, Josiah. You have a men's breakfast. We have a men's breakfast. It's here at the church because
Sure.
we don't have a restaurant big enough to, it's not like
Yeah.
when I was in Salt Lake. But I've told the dads, if you think your sons can sit in here appropriately, and if this is appropriate, you make the call, go ahead and bring them. So Daniel, the intern on our program, but he's come.
This week I had my son come.
You had your son come. Your son's pretty young. Like
He's
how
6. He just turned 6.
6, and he sat there fine.
He sat there fine.
Why? Tell me the heart behind why you wanted him to be there.
I want him to see the men worshiping, and we've started kind of having worship at our men's breakfast, and then we have a message, and so I wanted him to sit. I mean, we're trying to model for our children sitting through a service, being able to pay attention, and that's kind of the ethos we're trying to go for with that.
That's fantastic. All right, guys, what do
Man.
you? Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to pause and say that is so awesome that you guys are doing worship and a devotional time as part of your men's breakfast. I mean, what a joy that you get a place to do that. We meet for men's breakfast at a restaurant. I don't know how they would feel about us leading worship at the restaurant, but I
Stand
love
up and lead
that
everyone
men's
in this song.
breakfast-
Just belt it out, man.
That's so
Just
awesome,
go
man.
for it.
That's great.
Well, and that's pros and cons. Like, I'd love it if we were meeting in a public place, but there's not a public place big enough to host what we're
It'd be
doing.
hard, yeah.
So since we're at the church building, we have
It's
Jake
great.
comes and plays music for us. Last month he was sick, and about a dozen
Yeah, we
young
all got up
dudes
there
stood
and-
up and became a choir. It was quite embarrassing, but we did it. And then, but he does a good job leading the worship. A little bit of a message, discussion at the table. It's good stuff. All right, guys, what do we say? So it seems like we're all in agreement that we need to be
Yeah.
bringing
Absolutely.
people along. And we mostly talked about little kids. What about new believers? Joe, do you do this with new believers? I mean, where's how do you bring new believers along in the life of the church?
For sure. Obviously, there are roles, like I mentioned, in the church that are reserved for members. If you're going to be on our worship team, whether that's in the sound booth, behind the scenes, or on the stage, we believe you have to be a member here. We want to make sure that you believe theologically what we believe at the church
Absolutely.
and what we preach here. And that's a role because you are leading the church in worship.
Yeah.
But just like with your story, Brian, I remember when I was kind of new to a church, I got plugged in pretty early on in greeting and kind of helping with some different things around the church. So there are obviously opportunities for new believers to serve in the church. Sometimes we'll have new members help serve the coffee and make the coffee on Sunday morning,
right.
or maybe even help clean the building throughout the week and get things ready for Sunday, that kind of stuff.
Good to just find a place. How about we didn't really talk about, I want to talk about some objections to this thinking or how we would defend this thought process for those who might, for the church who has all the deacons that come down, and they're all in their 60s. How do we defend what we're talking about? But before I go there, what about like college students or even we're talking about training up the next generation to do ministry.
Yeah.
Joe, you've got a guy who I think this guy listens to this podcast and has since the very inception of this podcast. I think he's our longest listener. So you know who you are if you're listening, but you've actually started putting him in places where he's got some speaking responsibilities. He's got some stuff that's happening on the Sunday service. So tell me about, how's that going? Did you go out and find the very best, most capable seminary grad who's done whatever? Or talk me through what that looks like as you're training up the next generation of leaders in the church.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole reason we're doing this podcast is it's important to remember that we're not going to be around forever. We need to be equipping people to come up behind us. And so that's what I'm doing with this young man is I'm trying to give him opportunities to serve. Now, obviously, I'm the lead pastor here. I'm going to be preaching the sermon, 80, 90% of the time, but he can help lead kind of a kid's sermon for the kids on the Sundays where we have family worship. He'll do a little kid's sermon. I've had him come in and share a devotional at our senior luncheon or at the men's breakfast. I'm working with him to kind of do some one-on-one discipleship and just exposit God's word that way, one-on-one with some college-age guys as he's in his 30s and can kind of help train up some guys behind him. And we're actually working towards him preaching a sermon in the pulpit on Sunday morning.
Nice.
I mean, I remember, Brian, when you gave me my first shot at preaching a sermon, and your introduction and outro of my sermon was longer than the sermon I preached.
That's because
you gave me a shot.
Because you only had one breath to preach your sermon.
It's true. I mean, I did it without breathing. I was so nervous. I hadn't been that nervous since I played the drums on Sunday night for the adult service when I was a kid. But that's the key, right? You were humble enough to say, let's give this guy a chance and let's work with him and develop him. Not waiting for me to be perfect, not waiting for me to have it all sorted out in my seminary degree. You kind of brought me along. And I think there's something when we talk about discipleship with the come with me mentality of just come with me. Whatever that is, whether it's going to a grocery store run for some hard-boiled eggs or whether it's cleaning the church building or whatever, right?
I told him our hard-boiled egg. That was an inside joke for our listeners.
So funny, man.
So how did that? I know when you preached, Josiah, the church was really receptive to this reality that, okay, we're training up somebody. We know it's not going to be great, but we like to be a part of it. And I think we have that DNA at Trinity. Some like, you, Kirk, and Max preached in a series last summer, and the church was like, hey, this is fun. We've got people coming into the pulpit that we're not necessarily used to, but we understand what we're doing. And so it has this really sort of endearing value in saying this is what we do with the next generation. Rather than going out and find the greatest, best preachers and inviting them to come all the time, we said, no, these are our people, and we're working at it. We're raising it up. It's good. Yeah.
No, I think that's great.
So, how do we have a little bit of time. Someone comes and says, wait, you need to give the congregation the very best every time. It should be excellent. I mean, you shouldn't be putting if there's somebody that's the most capable preacher in the room, that guy should always be in the pulpit. And if there's somebody who's the most capable coffee maker, that person should always be there. And I think those individuals will make an argument like this. Elisha did not do the job until Elijah was gone. Mm-hmm. Joshua came in, Moses died, then Joshua goes. That's the argument they would make.
Yeah.
I'll start with you, Kirk. Like, how would you argue against that view?
Well, I would affirm the ethos behind it, that it's a good value to want to give God our best and to worship that way. But I would also probably turn to 1 Timothy 4:12, let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech and conduct and love and faith and purity, because, that's how we raise up the next generation. Discipleship does not happen without opportunity to make mistakes. It just doesn't. I mean, making mistakes you've told me often, and I take it to heart, is fail fast and fail often, because that's how you learn. Yeah.
Learn from the failures. I'm going to come back to something really funny, but maybe it's not so funny for Kirk. But Joe, how would you defend this? Actually, hold on. I'm going to go there. So Josiah, we had Kirk go to Memorial Homes. Yeah. We have a couple of assisted living facility here, and they're great. And so one of the guys on our staff here took Kirk, and you did like the Lord's Supper with him and a devotional, and he was there to serve them. Praise the Lord. Great opportunity for people to learn and training.
Absolutely.
You come out of an environment that's not like where we're at in Nebraska today. He was a missionary and around the world, and so he's learning some of these things that weren't so accustomed to the ministry you were doing. Right, yeah. So he shows up and he's learning how to do this sort of thing. And I heard that the whole time you were doing this, they were doing the fire alarm testing the entire time.
It was so loud. It was like just breaking into starting to say something and
and so how is that valuable though? Like, is that a failure on your part? No, but it gives you these opportunities to deal with that. Josiah, have you ever had anything problematically break into the ministries you're doing and you have to learn, right? So
you got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, just work through the chaos, man.
Yeah, so you have to let people have these experiences and try this thing. So we're kind of laughing at you and with you, and mostly with you, like, because we all can relate to how difficult those kinds of things are. Okay, Josiah, how do you defend your view that you're letting kids pass the offering plate or be in the sound booth or young people or college? How would you defend that?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have a commitment to excellence. We should want to give God our best. But I remember, I'm that generation that's coming behind Generation X. And before they kind of lumped us in with all the millennials, they called my generation Generation Y. And that's because we ask why all the time. We want to understand the why behind the things that we're doing. And I think that's really key for the kids. So I come back to my offering example of the kids that didn't have a tie or dress shirt on. They need to understand why that's important before I just demand that of them. And I think bringing them along, giving them opportunities to serve, and using time here at the church and in discipleship to talk about why we would want to dress up for church or why people value that will then help bring them along versus just kind of setting that standard before they even understand what church is or the importance of it.
Yeah. That's really
and I think
good.
I'd also would tell them, we kind of put some guardrails up too. It's not like we're just giving them the whole ministry.
You're not throwing them in the deep end of the ministry pool.
I mean, they're only doing one sermon here.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. This is a good opportunity to say this is a way for them to have other brothers around them, more mature brothers, grown men, if they're kids, walking them, protecting. It's not like you just said, okay, well, kids are running the show. See ya. Peace out.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really good to remember. Well, we're out of time on this one. But Joe, you want to let the Lord have the last word?
Sure. As always, we like to end with God's word. And so I want to read us a verse from Psalm 96. Psalm 96, verse 1 says, "Sing a new song to the Lord. Let the whole earth sing to the Lord. Sing to the Lord, bless his name, proclaim his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the nations, his wondrous works among all peoples."
Amen.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening. Find more resources at SaltyBeliever.com.